Hi and welcome to Daily Chess and my coverage of the Breisacher Memorial Biel, Switzerland 2013. I'm right now covering the second round and the second decisive game this round between Richard Rapport and Alexander Moissenko. And so Richard played e4, and he's known as a kind of aggressive player, and someone who tries to strive for initiative from the very beginning. And in this relatively quiet Rossolimo, he tried to create complications by playing e5, always trying to create initiative. Knight e5, knight c3, the knight is hanging. And now if black would have taken, he would end up being worse because of the d takes c3. The pawn in e5 does a very good job in limiting his development. You know, if he plays b6, he can even take on c6. Otherwise, if he plays d6, white just takes, and despite his weakness on d6, this bishop on g7 is not very active and cannot be very active anytime soon. And that's the main problem here. Of course, right now it's not even possible because the king is in the center. But after, let's say, a6, he just goes bishop c4 and maintains the pressure he has thanks to his more active pieces and in better developed pieces. So white would have been better here. So knight c7 is the main move. And both players went down a theoretical line here. Bishop takes, d takes, knight e4, attacking the pawn, so always improving pieces, trying to generate initiative. b6, knight f6, a very strong tactical idea, which forces the opponent's king to the center, simply deprives him from castling, because e takes f is obviously bad. E takes f6, king f8 takes, and maybe b3, with the bishop here coming to the powerful and long diagonal. White enjoys a clear edge. King f8, okay, knight e4, he has done his job. Well, this king is now very, it's more of a stumbling block here. It simply stops the opponent's harmonious development. And okay, h6, no, just to stop any knight g5 ideas, and also maybe to create a lift lock here for the opponent. Queen g8, king h7, d3. And there are some games reaching this position, and usually the game continues with bishop g4. Bishop g4, and I think h3 is an interesting idea. The takes, quite enjoys a slide edge. But also interesting is knight e to d2, as in the game Jovanovic against Djokovic in Nîmes 2008. It was also quite interesting. But Moissenko here deviated. I guess it was not very much prepared. Objectively speaking, I'm not sure if this idea is very, very good. Knight g3, he immediately questions this idea by highlighting the weaknesses of a lot of light squares, controlling f5 and h5. So I think, in the long run, these weaknesses should tell. And bishop e6, queen e2. Now also heating maybe for some squares here later on. Queen d5. Well, okay, queen d5 is the first real mistake where black is close to be lost, actually, because he's in a complete bind. And the move Moissenko missed is not an obvious one, maybe not even not a move to be considered in this position, because it weakens a lot of squares. c4, hitting the queen, but with the intention of playing, of fixing this pawn here and playing bishop b3 and bishop b2, also putting this bishop in this powerful diagonal. And this pawn is not to be taken, at least not anytime soon. And d4 can always come because the knight is not ideal place to control d4. Therefore, white can even try to get rid of his weakness. After queen d7, b3, f5. The idea is, point being that rook d8, bishop b2, and queen takes c3 is just losing rook a to d1. And he's just winning. For instance, if he takes here, we first take with check, an intermediate move, rook knight d8, sorry, and then I guess with the rook, the other knight can go here, maybe even something like this, maybe even sometimes with h4, and so on. So it's a very, very good position for white. It's just simply winning here. Okay, f5, therefore. It's okay, because if he takes and the bishop takes, he will always have this weakness here, and after bishop b2, it's not easy to see where Black's compensation lies for his structural weaknesses. I mean, this pawn is, as I mentioned, not very easy to exploit. And if this pawn isn't to be exploited, then Black's just worse. E takes f6, bishop b2, rook e8, and queen c2, and White's in total control here. I mean, Black doesn't have really, let's say, sound counterplay. And I don't know how the time was, how the clock time was, and because from now on, Richard starts to make mistakes which are which are quite unusual. I mean, he's someone who's used to have complications on the board, and he's someone who is also very familiar with playing with complications. And here it looked as if he simply didn't grasp the essence of the position and simply lost the thread. Moissenko tried to, his only chance actually to play h5, at least some attack on the king side. Now better would have been knight e4 instead of having the game with the idea of just generating pressure, according to his philosophy of gaining initiative. And simply rook e3, and then rook d2 e1, 2e1, and maybe a slight plus. Rook e3 is certainly bad because the pawn's just coming. I think g4 might have been even better. Sorry, here g4 might have been better if this and f5. And this pawns are starting to roll. But h3 is not bad either. And so g3, bishop f7, b4. This move was harshly criticized because Richard sacrificed a pawn for, in a way, dubious compensation. I mean, okay, he freezes d pawn, but well, this pawn is cannot go anywhere, at least not now. And if it cannot go anywhere, this pawn sacrifice is not very sound. And Moissenko, punished his opponent's rather overambitious play quite effectively. d4, a5, keeping his pawn. a3, trying to break it up. King g8, a takes, and okay, planning later to play c5 here. Knight f2, g2, g4. Completely tying down now. Also, this squares here are very, very weak. If a queen manages to go there, it will be very difficult for Black to hold, for White to hold. Knight b3, rook g6, and White is totally busted. I mean, he doesn't have any counterplay, whereas the opponent's plans are rather clear. Play f5, free the bishop, hit the knight, go for f4 maybe even, and it looks very, very dangerous. I mean, you can also play b5 or c5 depending on what the opponent's doing. And as we can see, the game finished rather soon. Moissenko managed to simply convert it quite easily with a very good technique. Knight e2, d2, f5 comes, knight f1. Yeah, you see that White is forced to make passive moves. And after b5, knight c5, queen c8, rook takes, knight takes, rook e7, b takes c. Yeah, there wasn't much he can do. I mean, these two passed pawns here are very, very dangerous. He's just threatening maybe to play c3, after which White almost has to sacrifice his bishop, and Black is winning. Knight e3, c3, knight takes f5 first, c takes b2, very important, and after knight e7, queen a8, threatening this, and c5 followed by queen b2. Black's just winning. Queen takes b2, c5, threatening mate, and White has to give up material, much more material, after which he ends up losing the game. Therefore, Richard resigned here. So it's quite interesting and very symbolic game here for ideal game for his style. I mean, he's always pressing for initiative, But I must say he had a very, very promising position. I mean, I didn't see any real counterplay for Black, but he just tried to play over ambitiously, too over aggressive. Thought he might generate some play here with rook e3, but here he should have been cautious and maybe first play knight e4. Not switching plans, not playing on the e file, but trying to use his opponent's structural weaknesses. and I think this would have been better, but okay. Rook e3. As I mentioned, I don't know how the clock was ticking on if he was in time trouble. But okay, here suddenly black's starting to take over after h3. It's very difficult for white, and after his sacrifice a pawn for which he never obtained enough compensation, he was just losing. Okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed this this coverage of the second round, and subscribe to my channel on YouTube, DailyChessTV, as well as follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. And leave a comment if you see something I might have missed, and maybe even a suggestion or an improvement or something like this. It would be great if you just share it on my channel. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.